Hello and welcome. My name is Janae and this is JunaVee Studio. In today's video, I'm going to be painting over one of my older paintings while I chat about my style, my process, and maybe even a little bit about how I've been a little self-conscious about all of that. This painting is still a work in progress, and I will be finishing it in another video that'll be all about how to actually finish a painting. If that sounds like content you'd like to see, don't forget to subscribe. In the meantime, settle in, grab a refreshment, and let's get to the video. Like I said, this painting is a pretty old painting, and I have a lot of old paintings. I have some that I worked really hard on that I'm proud of, even though I feel like my style has evolved since then. But that's okay, because these show an important part of my progress as an artist. And a lot of times I have these paintings that I haven't worked on in a long time, but now the style or the color palette, there's just something about it that no longer vibes with me, right? And then you have paintings like this one that just never had a chance. They never had a very clear idea of what they were going to be, which is probably a contributing factor to me never really liking it. A lot of times with paintings, they are nothing until I get to a point of falling in love with them, and then, they become my favorite little painting. Leave a comment below to let me know what you do with old paintings or how you feel about them. I'm sure there are people out there that will paint over anything, like nothing is precious, it's fine. And then maybe there are people that will never paint over anything because each of them sort of signifies a part of the process. This one I feel is different because it never really progressed into a painting, so I didn't feel any kind of which way about painting all the way over it. But let me know in the comments how you feel about that. I'm very curious. I wouldn't necessarily paint over a painting that shows a part of my... Actually, now that I think about it, I don't think that I would feel super bad about painting over an old painting that I have, even if I really liked it at the time. So there are definitely some that I wouldn't paint over, ever, but there are definitely a lot that I would. Now that I think about it, as somebody who wants to have a really big selection of old work when I'm a famous artist, that would be cool, because then you could go back into my work, and at that point it's not like, I don't know, it'll just be interesting. It'll be cool to see the bad art that was created, and that bad art is part of the process. At this point, I started to fall back in love with this painting, but I still just don't like that tree, so out it goes. And you might be able to tell by now that my style is very scribbly, and I'm really leaning into that recently. I feel like I really love when up close a painting just looks like a hot mess. Like there's so many little brush strokes all meshed up together. So many different layers that you can see of the brush strokes, and even texture underneath the color that shows different brush strokes. And I just am in love with all of that. And I feel like that not only is it where I feel my style evolving further towards, but it's a little bit also part of the reason that I've been a little self-conscious about showing a true painting process video. It might be a self-taught artist thing. I am mostly self-taught. When I was attending school for art, I took the kind of prerequisite classes, so intro drawing, intro painting, but I never got a chance to actually take intermediate painting or life painting or, any of the other upper level courses of art. So most of what I know is pretty self-taught. I never even took a color theory class because that was considered upper level. So pretty much what I do is self-taught, and maybe that's why I have this sort of scribbly, intuitive kind of style where when I start a painting, very rarely do I actually use a reference image. Although I will say that I have used a reference image before, and those are some of my favorite paintings that I've done. So it's definitely something I want to revisit. It could be that, I don't know. I feel like it is part of just my style, but I most of the time don't know what I'm doing. In a way that's unfair to say, honestly, if I'm being totally honest, it's unfair because I do feel like most of what I'm doing is intentional, but that doesn't mean that I know how it's going to turn out, or, I have a really clear image in my mind of what it's going to end up looking like. I just make marks and make new marks that those marks make me think of, and, it just kind of goes. It's a really intuitive process. And I choose the colors that, I think will go well. What ends up happening is I just kind of keep painting until the image starts to appear, until I can start to see what I'm actually painting. I do feel a little bit self-conscious about my style because I can end up going back and forth on something. I can paint and repaint again, and sometimes that means painting over something. For example, this tree that I started to paint in again and thought, wait, what am I doing? I hate this tree, and painted over it again. But now we can see that there is another tree forming right here, which is okay because it's coming along. It's coming along. But a lot of the times I am not actually painting from any kind of reference. I'm just painting what I see. Sometimes I'm painting an image that I have in my head, but a lot of times when I start a painting, I'm really just laying down color and the painting sort of appears in front of me. And as I paint, slowly but surely, I start to see the image in my mind, and then that's what I'm painting from that point on. But I don't start with knowing what it's going to look like. Most of the time I don't. And I would say even if I do, it's still a very loose image. And I think I've felt a little self-conscious about this for a while now, because even in the paintings that I was doing, in my mini paintings and any of the other stuff that I was painting last year and the year before, I really was aiming for things to look a little bit more realistic than normal for me, I suppose, or just, I always ended up feeling like I pushed it too far in the direction of realism. And I often felt like I wanted it to have more weirdness, more almost alien world feel, or just kind of like trippy and psychedelic. And I want it to feel much less like you look at it and just know what it is. I want it to feel like a question, or feel like it could be whatever you want, or mostly to bring this feeling that it is sort of manifesting right in front of you at this point. And that's why it looks kind of like a mirage. That's why it looks kind of trippy and malleable, and like it's not quite formed all the way, because that's how I feel reality is, and it's unfolding right in front of us, and it's way more malleable than any of us have been led to believe. And we have so much more control over our experience than we think. And I think ultimately that is what I want my art to say, what I want my art to remind you of, is that you are connected to source energy, and you can create whatever it is you want in your experience. You really can. And I think the frustrating part about it is that you have to start where you are. And I know how frustrating that is, because it's like you feel like the thing that you want is so far away from where you are right now. But if you don't start where you are, you'll never get anywhere. You'll always be sort of chasing this feeling of being something that you're not, and you'll never truly develop a system for you to get from point A to point B. It's almost a full realization that point B isn't somewhere in the future. You can access point B right now. When you stop seeing yourself now as so separate from this future self that you're making up, you can see that you can access that person right now in this moment by even just the smallest task. The smallest thing can begin the momentum, and that momentum can create more and more and more. That momentum gets more efficient at creating something amazing. Movement, action, intention, all of these things drive the train of change. So often I look at older versions of a painting and think, oh man, I kind of liked that part about it. I wish I hadn't totally covered that up. But in the end, when I am left with a painting that I love, all of those previous versions of it are still in there somewhere. And I think that that's really beautiful. And I don't think that they're totally gone. Just because you can't see them doesn't mean that their energy isn't still active within the painting. So it's kind of part of the painting magic for me. It is also magical how simply putting certain colors next to other colors just makes me feel a certain kind of way. And sometimes combinations are really magical and sometimes they're kind of eh. It's interesting too because there's a new thing that I've been teaching in my paint and sip classes, which is to loosen up your brushstrokes. Loosen up and make it kind of messy, especially for the nature paintings. It is so important for them to have a sense of spontaneity, and that spontaneity is so easy to achieve because we have human error and our unique ways of holding a paintbrush and the way that our pressure, the way that we lay the paint down, it's all of these things create our style, and that style is so important and so unique. I guess I'm just trying to embrace my style, almost like abstract expressionism way of mark making and making it really energetic and crazy, kind of raw. And when you look at it up close, it's just like, gosh, what a mess, what a bunch of hoopla. But then you step back and the image becomes clear. And it may still look a little weird. It may still look a little gooey and almost like it's manifesting right in front of you. And I think that is a common theme in my work. I want it to feel like you are just a few steps away from being in open space that is unmanifested, just pure potential. We create our own reality, and because of that, it really unfolds right in front of us, moment by moment. Like I said, this piece is still a work in progress, so this is where it is now. I'm gonna do another video where I actually finish it up and sort of walk through the things that I do in order to finish a painting. So definitely press the little bell icon so that you are notified when I post that next video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like. You can press the icon in the corner of the screen to subscribe to my channel. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Bye.